Every US presidency has a defining moment, a chapter that defines their legacy. For Joe Biden, it is Afghanistan. When Kabul fell, the American president was seen vacationing at Camp David. No statement, no tweet, just deafening silence. More than 24 hours later, he returned to the White House. The question was, would Biden admit to his administration's severe miscalculations? Would he address the humanitarian disaster in Kabul? Well, here's your answer.
I stand squarely behind my decision. After 20 years, I've learned the hard way that there was never a good time to withdraw U.S. forces. That's why we're still there. We were clear-eyed about the risks. We planned for every contingency, but I always promised the American people that I would be straight with you. The truth is, this did unfold more quickly than we had anticipated. So what's happened? Afghanistan political leaders gave up and fled the country.
Joe Biden is defiant. Not only did he defend America's withdrawal from Afghanistan, he pinned the blame on Afghanistan. Biden says Afghan politicians gave up and Afghan soldiers surrendered without a fight. That's rather convenient. The US president happily glossed over his own country's failures. And let me tell you what those failures are. Biden says he planned for every contingency. That's hard to believe looking at the scenes unfolding in Kabul. The Taliban have taken over. The US embassy lies abandoned. Helpless Afghans have been clinging on to American planes in their desperation to flee. Does any of this sound like planning for every contingency? Biden also said that the buck stops with him, that he takes responsibility for the Afghan debacle. That sure sounded excellent, but then he passed the buck along, and how? He blamed his predecessor, the Afghan politicians and the Afghan army. For Joe Biden, the mission in Afghanistan is complete and it is time to pack up and leave. He says nation building was never a part of the plan.
We severely degraded al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. We never gave up the hunt for Osama bin Laden, and we got him. That was a decade ago. Our mission in Afghanistan was never supposed to have been nation building. It was never supposed to be creating a unified, centralized democracy.
What the president said is simply not true. Maybe Joe Biden needs to hear it from his former boss. In 2012, Barack Obama signed a deal with the Afghan government. This is what he said about America's role in the country.
As you stand up, you will not stand alone. It establishes the basis for our cooperation over the next decade, including shared commitments to combat terrorism and strengthen democratic institutions. It supports Afghan efforts to advance development and dignity for their people.
You will not stand alone. That was Obama's promise to Afghanistan. But today, Afghans are indeed alone. They feel abandoned, and Joe Biden is basically blaming the Afghans. The fact is, America was always in the business of nation building. That is how their contractors got billion-dollar checks. Now that the war is lost, Biden is changing tone. He says they wanted to get bin Laden and nothing more. He says there is no right time to withdraw troops, and that is what Joe Biden gets wrong. Nobody wanted America to colonize Afghanistan. Nobody wanted the occupation to continue endlessly. But there is a difference between withdrawing and fleeing. America did not pull out, they ran away. Two entirely different things. Just look at what this hasty exit has done. There is a full-blown refugee crisis in Kabul. The situation at the airport is still precarious. Take a look at this picture that has been doing the rounds. It claims to show the scenes inside American evacuation planes. This one is a C-17 Globemaster III. Do you know how many people it is carrying? 600. They don't have masks. They don't have seats. They have been packed in like cargo. Remember, these are American allies from the war. There are 80,000 of them across the country, mostly interpreters. Guess how many have been resettled? Just 2,000. So more than 70,000 American allies have been left behind. They are open targets for the Taliban now. Compare their situation now with these pictures. US military dogs being calmly evacuated from Kabul. They got AC cabins, entire seats to themselves. Don't get me wrong here. These are brave dogs. They deserve to be rescued. But so do the Afghans. Here's another takeaway from America's disastrous pullout. Afghan jails have been breached and thousands of prisoners have been freed. These are not petty thieves or white-collar criminals. These are hardened terrorists. They belong to the Al-Qaeda, the Pakistani Taliban, and the ISIL. Take a look at this video from Sunday. This is after a prison in Kabul was breached. Look at the prisoners casually strolling out. Reports say 5,000 of them were freed. 5,000. So how can Joe Biden say Afghanistan is terror-free? His own military leaders tell a completely different story. In June, American generals said that terror networks would revive in 2 years. Now they have revised that assessment. In less than 2 years, Afghanistan could once again become a launch pad for terror attacks. So much for mission accomplished. Biden's speech was an affront to Afghanistan and its people. You see, leadership is about a lot more than policies. It's about compassion and understanding. Joe Biden displayed neither on Monday. He wrapped up his speech and stormed out of the room. Guess where he went? Back to Camp David to resume his vacation. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.